Compressor quote.
Righty. Good morning, everyone. I suppose afternoon to you, Illia. You're in Canada or the Northern Hemisphere. My name's Guy Armstrong. I'm talking to you from the south, from New Zealand. This is Illia Hart. She's Canadian, and we are talking about body electronics, the world's most powerful healing modality today. So we're looking at chapter 21 in book 1 of the Logic and Sequence series. If you've got that, PDFs are available on Illia's website, which is Whole Earth Health.
Whole Health Center.
Whole Health Center. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Whole Health Center. Is that .ca?
.com.
.com. Okay. Awesome.
Yeah. Just put in Logic and Sequence in the search bar and they'll come up.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah, they're free of charge. They're downloadable. Whatever you want to do with them is fine. John would, if he was still on the planet, he would give full permission for everybody to use the material, the Logic and Sequence series, to their benefit.
So yeah. So it's the title Logic and Sequence refers to the sort of step-by-step growth that or step-by-step progression that we go through when we are healing and regenerating the body and releasing ourselves from the entrapments of emotional bondage. So what that can mean is we often have what we call reactive patterns that govern huge amounts of our behavior. So we're sort of enslaved in some ways to whether we are an intellectual kind of person or an intuitive kind of person, or even though these things can be good, sometimes they can also be sort of entrapping in a way. And body electronics is a way for us to evolve in our consciousness and grow into a person who can still be these things, but does not have to compulsively be these things. Would you say that's an okay sort of assessment for a?
Yeah. The quote of John Whitman Ray, who's the founder of Body Electronics. One of his quotes that if you've listened to my videos, you've heard me say it before. But one of the things he used to say is, we're 99% unconscious, and if we argue with that, we're 100. And I think that goes along well with what you just said, with the reactive programming that we're all sort of walking around in this. We have a very small amount of conscious awareness, and we're working with that small amount, and the rest is sort of reactive programming. Yeah, so in body electronics, we're bringing that to the surface. We're being willing to bring that reactive programming to the surface so that we can work with it to release it. Yeah. So.
Sorry, I'm losing your signal for a second. Okay, there you are.
So in this chapter, I felt it was appropriate for today's talk. This is our 10th discussion, Guy, in this series that we've been doing. So we'll just keep going. We've been doing almost every week for quite some time, so that's been really helpful to keep some momentum. Today I opened up book 1 to the laws of love, light, and perfection. And there's 12 points. So I thought we could go through those 12 points just as a jumping off point to give a little discussion on each point. It's just very brief. These points are very, very sort of brief overviews of the work. So number 1 is the physical body is prepared nutritionally. So here, there's so much to say about nutrition, and I noticed in our talks, and it was somewhat intentional on my part, that we started off our first few talks with a lot of nutrition, and then we moved into the emotional body, and then into the mental body, and then into spiritual. And so we covered a lot of the nutritional stuff. So I don't think it's important for us to go through it step by step. And there's lots on my website that people can access to get the basic nutritional program. And also my full-time job is to be in consultation with people who are not necessarily looking to do body electronics, although that would be great. I do have some clients who are heading in that direction, but mostly people come just for some nutritional advice, or perhaps they're dealing with some kind of an issue, a physical issue that they want to work with nutritionally. So that's what I've been doing online. So I'll just put that out there to the community. One of the things that came to me today, that like nutrition is so complex and diverse that it's difficult to even get into it without really going on and on and on about it. So let's just keep it really simple today. One of the things that came to me this morning, so I was thinking about me. We just had solstice week, and so I've just come into summer and you've just come into winter. And so I was thinking about vitamin D for you. So do you take vitamin D?
Yes, I've been taking vitamin D pills for about a year now, maybe a little over a year.
So how many IUs do you normally take, especially in the winter months?
Wow, I'm not sure. I'm sorry. I just take one little tablet a day.
Okay.
Yeah, try to get outside. I think that's the directions on the bottle. Yeah.
Okay, so if it's 1,000 IUs, which is the typical vitamin D supplementation, poor gel cap, they're usually mixed with some kind of an oil. So first thing I want to say about vitamin D is be aware that they do mix them with some shady oils sometimes, like soy oil or canola oil. And so just be really aware of that. Get a vitamin D that's at least with olive oil. It does need to be contained in an oil. So I think that's extremely important, first of all. And another very important part of vitamin D is to take it along with vitamin K2. That's really important. Vitamin D tends to, like vitamin D supplementation, of course, we should get as much natural ultraviolet light as we possibly can from the sun each and every day. Try to get out, no matter what the time of year. If the sun's shining, it would be, it's a great habit to get into, to be outside. Yet that's not enough, especially here in the Northern Hemisphere. We really need to supplement vitamin D. So it does disrupt calcium within the body. And there's some people that say, according to certain studies, that vitamin D not only disrupts calcium, but can cause like sort of calcium misplacement, which can, that's something that we don't want. So, it literally refers to calcium being put in places it shouldn't be. So vitamin K2 is actually the way in which vitamin D can be absorbed correctly and not allow for that calcium disruption. So that's really important. And personally, I take, especially in the winter months, I take between 5,000 and 10,000 IUs per day. And some people say, I was listening to Dr. Stephen Malthouse, who is a allopathic doctor here in British Columbia, but one that I respect. And I went to see him speak recently, and he said that according to blood tests, that everybody absorbs vitamin D differently. And some people can take 5,000 IUs, but they still are D deficient. So he suggested around 8,000, which is, you know, somewhere in between of what I was normally taking. So, so yeah, I just wanted to put that out there for people. I think vitamin D is extremely, you know, very important supplement. And, you know, sort of on my top 5 below the supplements that are the nutritional protocol for body electronics. You'll see on my site that there's 5 nutritional musts. And from there, and that's supplementation. And then from there, there's other things that are also extremely important, like iodine, for instance. Iodine is really important for the thyroid gland. And I recommend taking kelp from the North Atlantic kelp. And that way it's much more bioavailable. That's just a couple of examples of sort of added nutrition on the body electronics protocol. Do you have anything to add to that, Guy, as far as?
Thank you.
Let's go back to the nutritional, like the actual nutritional profile for body electronics. Do you want to kind of just quickly go through that?
Well, I remember the 12 points on enzymes said that enzymes are the most important nutrient of all. I suppose, you know, nothing else can really happen in the body without them. And if we're eating a lot of cooked food and processed food, then we're going to be depleting our enzyme source in the body. And then I think minerals would have been a number 2, which would include iodine, of course, and calcium, both of which are really important.
Well, in minerals and body electronics, we, you know, the mineral product that we recommend from Enzymes International is a trace mineral product. So it's liquid minerals and mineral caps. So that's what we do in North America, Canada and the US, and anybody else who can afford it for the shipping around the world, because the gallons of minerals are quite expensive to ship. But it's actually a perfect balance of trace minerals, which are extremely important to the, you know, to the body electronics process, to the regeneration process. Sorry, I jumped in there, Guy. What were you saying about?
I remember that the minerals and enzymes combine to create, it's called an alkaline detoxifying agent. So that sort of helps to get rid of metabolic breakdown in tissues and rid of sort of toxic waste in the tissues, and, you know, wastes that have sort of glued up in the lymphatic system and that sort of thing. So it's well, obviously it helps to burn the calcification crystals that we're dissolving when we're holding pressure points. So there's I think what point is it, number 4 or 5 here on the point 4 here, talks about the crystals dissolving. If you haven't heard of that, that's how we do by holding pressure points in the body, and there's a crystalline structure in the body that is maybe a gateway or a conduit to memory, and we use that to hold pressure points to dig up our memories and re-experience the suppressed emotional trauma. Yeah, and the minerals and enzymes help facilitate the process of breaking down that crystal structure.
Yes, it's good to. I'm reminded of that every single time I open up a gallon of liquid minerals and really get into some mineral saturation mode. How effective and how quickly the calcifications, the crystallizations start to break down, and the healing crises starts, you know, really starts to get amped up. And yeah, and then of course the other thing that comes to mind is the detoxifying that we do, that, you know, not just with the minerals, but the minerals really add that detoxification to it. And what happens eventually, if we're really diligent with taking the liquid minerals, we will start to have liquid black stool. And that's basically toxins being drawn out and removed through the gastrointestinal tract. And it's, you know, it's quite an amazing process to detoxify while building the healing crises, getting ready for the point holding process.
Should we, did you want to talk about what a healing crisis is? What do you mean by that?
Sure. So the second book of Logic and Sequence, big thick book, is called The Healing Crises. So that gives you the listener an understanding of how deep that goes. So I you know, I suggest that you go and read those books in order to get like a really good understanding of what we're talking about when we say healing crises in the body electronics work. So basically, healing crises is we start off on the physical level and we build the nutrition, we call it saturation level. We build the nutrition to encourage the healing crises so that we can bring up, stir up and bring up what is being held in those crystalline structures unconsciously. And then we can work with that. So that's kind of basically why we're encouraging the healing crises. We're doing it so that we can find what we're looking for. Okay, so let's go back. So we did enzymes and minerals. Number 3, there's always like I think essential fatty acids should come in number 3. For me, number 3, 4, and 5 are almost interchangeable as far as importance. But yeah. So Doug wrote 12 points on essential fatty acids. And that's Doug Morrison, author of How We Heal. And I have included that in the body electronics experience. So you can also find that, you can buy that on Amazon, but you can also find it free of charge on my website as a downloadable PDF. So it's really good to go through those 12 points on essential fatty acids. But basically what I like to say about keeping it really simple is to avoid omega-6s, really bring those omega-6s down, which is all your vegetable oils. So your get rid of soy, corn, canola, all of those oils, those vegetable oils that we really don't want, that are high in omega-6s, that are toxic as well in other ways. It's not just the essential fatty acids, but they have other toxicities. And up our omega-3s. So that is avocado, coconut. There is like cod liver oil is an excellent omega-3, and you just get really good quality cod liver oil from the Atlantic. Just a really good, you know, clean supplement, cod liver oil supplement. And so I think that's all I want to say about the essential fatty acids. Do you want to go on to number 4, Guy?
Would that be amino acids? Making sure you have the sort of complete spectrum
well, yeah, the raw protein. Mm-hmm. Yeah, raw protein. So to make sure that we have a complete, the complete spectrum of amino acids, we have to have raw protein. So do you want to talk about that for it?
Well, I've been using hemp hearts lately to sort of supplement raw protein, and I think the nuts here are all cooked, so I've got access to cashews and pumpkin seeds. We have a pretty good selection of nuts in New Zealand, but cashews are my favorite. I think they're imported from India or somewhere like that. I'm not 100% sure, but the hemp hearts are really good in cereal or even with a curry or something like that. They're kind of really good to go with other things. I had some bee pollen last year, but haven't been able to get any since I moved back to Wellington.
Mm.
I do love a bit of bee pollen. It's really, really good stuff.
Bee pollen has the full spectrum of the raw protein. It has full spectrum amino acids. So if we take just a little bit in the morning, even a half a teaspoon, we know that we have the raw protein that we are required for hormonal production. It's extremely important to the bodily functions, and within body electronics, we're activating our endocrine system, and for regeneration and just the whole process of transmutation, we have to have a really well-functioning endocrine system. So this is the importance of the raw protein. And yeah, there's lots of, sprouts. Yeah, there's lots of good, nice ways that we can get raw protein that if you're vegan, of course, you wouldn't take the bee pollen, but it really is. If there's no allergens to anything that bees provide, I think that's really the best way. Nuts, nuts require soaking or roasting in order for the phytic acid and the enzyme inhibitors to be released. And so just so people know that if they're going to use nuts as their raw protein, then they'll have to be like almost to the point of sprouting. So they would have to, and that's quite a process of going through your nuts and seeds. They should always be soaked at least 24 hours and then rinsed prior to eating, but they're not the very, very best source of raw protein, but definitely if you soak them well enough to that point of sprouting, then they're when you bring them to life, then they're going to have that potential, that live, that raw potential. Okay, so that's number 4, and one left, and that is probiotics. So those are the 5 musts for the nutrient saturation, and we build that. We call it nutrient, like a daily nutrient amount would be a maintenance level. That's if you're not building for a point holding intensive. That is just if you, just for your daily maintenance. And then we go into another process called saturation level. So we build our nutrition each and every day over a period of time up to the time of point holding, where we're at full nutrient saturation. And that's when the healing crisis is really, really vibrant, and we're ready to get on the table or hold points. Which I just want to say here, for people that don't understand about body electronics, it's outside of any medical paradigm. So we're not, I'm an instructor, so I instruct and I hold the space. But all of the people that are taking part in the intensives are giving and receiving equally. So there's no patient practitioner model in body electronics. And I think that's really important to healing work. So you're basically, you're readying yourself to be on the table and do the inner work for yourself. And you're also readying yourself to hold points and do the work to assist others in their process. So it's that equal give and receive. Okay, let's go to number 2. The individual is instructed in the manifold aspects of the laws of love, light, and perfection. That's quite again, these points are just jumping off points to vastness of information. So do you want to start with something there, Guy?
Well, I think I would recommend a person read Logic and Sequence Book 1, and don't just read it so you can say that you've read it. It's the sort of book where you can take some of the paragraphs in it and just consider them for quite a few years. It's a very deep philosophical kind of work. But there are, when I read that first, before we sort of talked about this, before we started this interview, I thought that, the thing that sprang to mind was that there are laws that govern not only our body, but our sort of interaction with the environment around us and the way it relates to our mind. I think in one of the videos, Doug Morrison refers to them as the axioms of our existence. And I guess the laws of love, light, and perfection sort of come under that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so also I'm going to just throw in here that so the way we begin body electronics with the point holding is basically bringing up, we're nutritionally preparing so that we can access the emotional body. So that within the emotional body, we apply the laws of love. And those laws are what we call enthusiasm, which I refer to as infinite love, forgiveness, and gratitude. So those are the three powers that we have as energies to transmute what comes up when we are accessing within the emotional body. Then when we access the mental body, and we'll get more on these points about that, we use what we call the laws of light, and we access the violet flame. Then the perfection is when we open ourselves to the spiritual and really see the perfection that exists beyond any programming that we have participated in. So that's sort of the very, very basic explanations of the laws of love, light, and perfection. Something came there, but anyway, let's keep going. Did you want to say something about that, Guy?
No, I was just thinking that as well. Yeah, the law of love is what transmutes the emotional body, and the law of light is that which transmutes the mental body. The mental body, it sounds like a strange thing. It always sounded a little unusual to me, but I would sort of explain it intellectually by saying it's where we have our most deeply held perceptions of reality. Would you agree with that, Illia? Would that be okay? Or
it's where we have entered into duality. So the mental body is a dualistic format, and it's where we've entered in. So when we're coming from what we can call the spiritual, where oneness exists, and when we come from that into the mental body, that's where it becomes a dualistic format. So we look at, that's just the way this dimension works. It's the rules of the game. And it's what we're going back through. So from the mental body, then the emotions are attached to that. And then the physical body is sort of at the bottom of it. The physicalities are the results of that, that sequence of coming into manifestation. So what we're doing with the healing crisis is we're going back the way we came. So we're starting at the physical, we're working through the emotional, getting access into the mental body, which then shows that duality. And what we're looking for when we're looking for that dualistic format is we're looking for our attachment to one side of the duality to the exclusion of the other. And that's where the greater and greater and greater separation occurs within the mental body, so that we don't even see both sides at all. And in the level of emotional pain, we start to see both sides of duality. And then we get to see where we have made our attachments. And that's really the important part within the healing crisis. That's the important part that we're looking for, is to really see where we are in relation to whatever duality presents itself. What is our attachment to that? And we have the methods of transmutation. And by the time you access the mental body and are seeing dualities, you're very adept at transmutation, because you've done a lot of the work within the emotional body. Okay, so, oh, here's what we talked about. Was it last week? Number 3,
Yeah,
the procedures concerning the list are applied assiduously. So was it last week that we did the list?
I think it was the week before.
The week before? Okay, so go back a couple. It must be number, we got 7 and 8 mixed up. So I think it's maybe number 7. So look at that to see about the list. We did a whole program on the list. Number 4, the crystals dissolve with the help of ancient techniques such as body electronics, which are rediscovered in our day. And that's what we're speaking about today. And I really appreciate what you said in the introduction, Guy. I've been thinking about this the last few days. The most powerful healing technique in the world today. And as you know, I avoided that statement for almost 20 years. And in my instructor's role, I felt like the proof is in the pudding is really how I felt about it. And I didn't want to make any grand claims about body electronics. Yet, the truth is the truth. And that, that statement that it is the most powerful healing modality on the earth today, as it comes to me in the last few weeks, more and more, I feel like, okay, that is the truth. And if it isn't the truth, I want to know personally what would be more effective in the holistic evolutionary process. And if that's the case, I want to know about it. So if anybody has any processes, because they would have to have been active within body electronics to really be able to know, and of course, there's another aspect to that is we basically, in body electronics, we get out of it what we put into it. So if we're nutritionally prepared, we're really going to get a lot out of the point holdings. If we're being perfectly still, we're going to get a lot out of the point holdings. If we're breathing deep and even without ceasing, we're going to get a lot out of the point holding. And it's, it works like that. So anyway, do you want to go to number 5?
Yeah. So the emotions are gradually transmuted by love, which is enthusiasm. So I'm thinking of relating this to something you said a while ago, which was about, I think I asked, how do you know when you've transmuted something sort of well? Maybe that wasn't the question, but you maybe not exactly, but I think you said when you can laugh about something, and you obviously didn't mean in a hysterical sort of out of control, condescending way or anything like that. You meant in a peaceful, happy kind of way, like you're not regretting that it happened. So in body electronics, we have a scale of emotions, which is basically a sort of a step-by-step rise from unconsciousness through to enthusiasm. And often we can mistake unconsciousness for enthusiasm because they both sort of can appear to be at peace, although there are sometimes quite obvious and quite subtle differences. And it's quite easy for us to consider experiences that have happened in our lives where we can look back and think that we felt sad, or we felt angry, or we felt scared, or that sort of thing. And what we want to do in body electronics and the point holding really helps with this is we want to transmute these old feelings associated with these memories and really get into these memories and relive them as if they're happening right now. So just no example off the top of my head, someone pushing me at school, and I'm feeling, don't push me, and I'm re-experiencing the sadness, the frustration, the anger, all that sort of stuff, while I'm on the point holding table as an adult 30 years later, holding my body completely still and experiencing those emotions with enthusiasm. And when we get into this, this is a little healing crisis here. When we get into this, we don't want to feel enthusiasm to the exclusion of those emotions. We want to feel those emotions really, really intensely. And there'll be a point where we can get to a level of real pain here, and sort of emotional pain. And if we can love that pain, then we're transmuting these emotions, and we'll eventually be able to sort of be we'll be able to find a higher level of peace with regard to whatever that memory is. And sometimes it'll take multiple point holdings to go through. In fact, this is my experience. Most times it'll take many, many point holdings to go through one memory. You'd have a memory sort of coming back, point holding after point holding after point holding, and then eventually you might sort of find a level of real peace with it. But I think there's, it goes so deep. The human mind's so deep. It's really difficult to say that you're definitely at peace with something. At least what I find. Am I rambling?
I think peace. I mean, every completion of a point holding, which means we've really given it our all, and we've stuck with it, and we've done, we've done as much as we possibly can on that particular day. We're not sort of goal oriented in the way that we're looking to complete each one, because we don't know what's left in the unconscious, but we know that we've done, and we're willing to do the absolute best we possibly could during that point holding, both on the table and holding points. So we really just give it our all. We just give it everything we got. And it does sometimes take several times to really complete. And how do we know that we've actually completed it? Because we may, 10 years down the road, there may be still a small part of a program or a pattern that will be stimulated by a particular memory. So when we never really know that mystery is part of it. We just are willing to bring up what we're ready for in that particular moment, and do our best to transmute and be satisfied with that. Be satisfied knowing that we've done our absolute best, and we just keep going. Yeah, we really will never know if that's a completion or not, but we can be happy with that, knowing that we've done our best in that particular time.
Yeah, I remember sometimes it's really easy to get right into the emotion and the anger and the fear and stuff like that. But if we're not finishing that point, we're not finishing that that point holding with enthusiasm, then we're basically, we're getting into a healing crisis and not coming out the other end of it.
Yeah, we have to access one or more of the three powers. So there has to be, that's what we first access the emotion, memory, and word pattern. And within that, we encompass that with one or more of the three powers: forgiveness, love, infinite love, or unconditional love, and gratitude. So we have to access, once we have, once we've brought something up within the healing crises and we're aware of the thought, which had become memory, we're aware of the emotion, we're intensifying the emotion, and we're speaking out the word pattern, then we have to access one or more of those three powers. We don't just, go on with the emotion. That's a really good point, because I've seen people do that, where they get, let's say, grief for an example, and they really get into some grief, and they'll spend the whole 2 hours or whatever the session length of time is process, or just actually intensifying the grief, but yet they haven't accessed one or more of the three powers. So that basically would be a session that would be considered venting and not transmuting. So really good point. We must, within each session, access one or more of those three powers to truly get some transmutation, which is permanent change of consciousness. We have to do that, in order for that to happen.
Doug says on one of those videos that the pain will transmute all of the emotions below pain, and then the love will transmute the pain. The enthusiasm will transmute the pain.
I would alter that a little bit. It is the infinite love, or the enthusiasm, in the, what we call it in the scale of emotions, that encompasses the pain, and the pain, and then everything beneath that is transmuted. But the pain itself doesn't do the transmutation. The accessing the pain and really feeling the pain, whether it be physical or emotional, is the stepping stone to, you're right beside, the next level up is enthusiasm. So it's the love is extremely accessible at that point. And so the same goes for accessing that, the enthusiasm during pain, as in any of the other emotions. You have to access that enthusiasm for transmutation to occur. Pain of itself doesn't transmute, yet it will bring one into a very intense ripeness to access one or more of the three powers. But it's very, let's say, it's extremely encouraging. Pain is extremely encouraging for us to access one or more of the three powers, because it's the only way out of it. I've seen people get into full body pain on the table, and they're in the pain and they're resisting the pain, but there's, they've encouraged that pain. They've worked with their healing crisis to get to that place where they could access suppressed pain. And then with facilitation, we encourage the person to continually look and access one or more of the three powers. And I've seen on several occasions, dozens and dozens of occasions, perhaps even hundreds at this point, where people access the pain, and the moment they can access love, that pain is transmuted like that. And their entire body, the pain is entirely released. What they had been like writhing, perhaps in agony, not able to be still because the pain was so intense. But the moment they access that love and bring the love into the pain releases. And that's really, 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 really important. And same goes for every other emotion. You have to bring the love into the pain. Feel what you feel. If it's pain, feel what you feel with love. Sometimes it takes some gratitude and forgiveness along the way within the memory to get to the place where we can actually access the love. Yeah. Okay, where are we here?
5 or 6? 6.
The body is accessed. We kind of touched on that already, where the mental body is accessed with through the transmutation of pain. So you transmute some pain, and immediately the mental body is available. It's really amazing how it opens, very much like the emotional body opens to the physical. So you prepare the physical body, you obey the three laws of the physical body, which is nutrient saturation, perfectly still, breathing deep and even. Those three principles open up the emotional body. With the transmutation of pain, we're opening up the mental body. It works exactly the same way. Number 7, the violet flame is used extensively, being constantly applied, making it possible to view the inner essence as well as the outer manifestation, cause and effect. Okay, let's just, do you want to say something there, Guy?
Well, I don't know. No, you go ahead. You go ahead.
Okay, I just want to point out, I mean, this is very brief. These points that we're making, just so people know, we're just touching upon things. So basically what we need to know within the body electronics construct is that the inner essence, what we call the inner essence, we refer to that as yang. And that inner essence is our creative essence. The creative essence is shown as thought, words, and emotion. So that's the inner yang. And that inner essence is the cause. The outer essence, we refer to it as yin, and that is the effect. That's really important to understand. And again, what Guy said earlier about reading the logic and sequence books is really important to have a basic understanding of how that works. So just to know that, but for today, I think it's just really important for us to be clear that the inner essence is the cause, the outer essence is the effect. Want to add anything to that, Guy?
I think that's a pretty wonderful
Pretty clear.
summation of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just that. Yeah. I would just say our thoughts have an effect, and that counts for our conscious thoughts as well as the subconscious, with the thoughts that we don't even know that we're having.
Right. All the suppressed material, that other 99%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So those have an effect on the world around us.
Yes. We have a individual effect and we have a collective effect. So humanity has a collective consciousness, and within that collective consciousness, we have an individual consciousness. So we are affecting, we're affecting the collective. So that's, that's important. So number 8, duality is encompassed with equanimity. So it's encompassed with equanimity when we release the resistance and the attachment that we have to both sides of the duality, then there can be some equanimity. When the violet flame is accessed within the mental body. So right as soon as we plunge ourselves into our dualistic awareness, we're going to start seeing, we're going to really start seeing our attachments and how we attached. And often what we would consider virtuous is where our attachments lies. And that's actually what is required to be released. That's the resistance that's keeping things apart, keeping the separation in manifestation. So we're looking to find all of the ways in which we attached certain qualities to one side of the duality, to the exclusion or partial exclusion to the other side of the duality. At times I've seen, when I've been working with a dualistic pattern within the mental body, I've worked on one side, and then I look at the other side, which is, they're quite clear if we look for it. And then the other side will also have a lot of attachment resistance with it. So then I have to clear that. And much like within the emotional body, we have to encompass, we have to keep, we don't let go of the laws of love when we're moving into the laws of light. We don't say, they're not compartmentalized in that way. We're actually very vibrant and present then with that infinite love, with that unconditional love. And that, along with the violet flame, really moves those resistance, those attachments into transmutation. It's by that time we have a very honed focus. When we get to the mental body, we have a honed focus. And that's also shown with our ability to point hold as well. We can really get adept at point holding by that time. Usually, and I'm not saying it has to take a long time to get to the mental body, but we really do have to do a fair amount of emotional work. I haven't seen anybody reach the mental body under, gosh, in just to ballpark it, I would say 20 point holdings before, and that's doing just purely emotional work within the emotional body, with the memory and the words. So, and then eventually, see, it's not something we just jump on the table and then the mental body presents itself. We've done a lot of point holding by that time. And so we get really good at holding spinal points with our elbows, just that focus that we just become more and more and more focused. And within that, it really serves us when we reach the mental body. It's part of it, that focus. It becomes like this laser-like focus that we have. Yeah, really, concentration doesn't quite cover it. It's truly a very inner, and that's all inner, by the way. It's an inner focus for the purpose of bringing dualities together, so that separation doesn't exist anymore. The resistance is released, and from there we can move into zero ohms resistance, the time-space continuum work, which we've talked about in previous episodes. Do you want to go to the next one? Oh, number 9. Yeah, go to number 9, Guy. That's a
okay. So resistance is observed, received, recreated, and released in the method given to you, or is yet to be explained. The word resistance refers to feelings that are less than love, anger, fear, pain, anything that's not sort of enthusiasm, anything that's resisting life being exactly what it is. And excuse me, observe, receive, recreate, and release is the way in which we deal with our memories and our feelings when we're on the point holding table. So we observe, we have a word pattern, feeling, a memory, we receive it, we let it come into our mind, we recreate it, which means we sort of make it come into our mind. There's a let it happen and make it happen simultaneously here. So we're both giving and receiving while we're at a point holding intensive holding points or having our points held, but we're also giving and receiving in our own mind in this way. So we're letting it happen, letting the memory come up, and we're also putting forth a lot of effort. John says, be like a hunter chasing a rabbit. When you're looking for the memory, you've got to be really, really assertively, I don't want to use the word aggressive, but you've got to be very outgoing in your pursuit of the memory.
Attentive.
Sorry?
Attentive.
Attentive, yeah, that's a good word for it, yeah. So we observe, receive, recreate, and then we release. And releasing, I often find that to be the hardest sort of point. I think I've got a fair bit of work to do on that, but that's when we're using one of the three powers, love and forgiveness and gratitude, to three, hopefully, to let the memory be what it is and let go of our emotional resistance to it. And really get as much of a transmutation as we can.
Right. Right. The release is actually the transmutation process. So observing is we call it O. If you see it in my writing, we abbreviate it to ORRR. So it's to observe the inner essence, what is being given to release. In there, I feel there is that intense onset of willingness. Willingness is extremely important at that point. And then to receive it is when we are actually looking for those three creative components. So we're looking for the word pattern, we're looking for the emotion, and we're looking for the memory. And then the third one is, second R is recreate or re-experience. We bring those three creative aspects that we found together into the now. So we're bringing it into the present moment, where then we can apply the transmutational principles and release it, the final R. So it's just a really, sometimes we get, especially in the beginning, the unconsciousness that comes from what we've suppressed, possibly over eons of time. The unconscious that comes when we first get on the table, the first few times particularly, we can get on the table and we can be like, what are we doing here? Even if we're well prepared psychologically and physically, through the literature and through our physical principles, we can still get to this foggy point as the numbness and the unconscious lifts into our awareness. And so it's really good to remember that ORRR, so that we can sort of remind ourselves what are we doing here again. And I remember thinking that on the table many, many times back in the Pennsylvania days. I'd get on the table and I would be just so like aware of unconsciousness, where the unconscious was just thick in its presence, that I was completely unaware of what I was there to do. So it's just a good method to remind ourselves. Okay, what next? Number 10, the outer manifestation gradually disappears as these methods are applied, thus the physical record dissolves. Want to say anything about that?
I guess he's sort of saying there that the as we change our thinking, we'll change the environment, we'll move into new situations in life, we'll grow.
Mhm. Sometimes quite suddenly.
Yep, sometimes suddenly, sometimes very gradually.
Right. So I've seen things appear and disappear. For instance, scars. We see a lot of disappearance of scars. When that is released, when there's a really full transmutation, scars disappearing is very, very common within body electronics. Yeah, so that's just one example of how things can change with consciousness change. Okay, number 11. Do you want to do that one, Guy?
Okay. The memory on the physical plane is no longer functioning, even though all is recorded in the eternal ether or the Akashic records. I'm guessing this relates to the perhaps to the violet flame and the effect it has, where you have some of the violet flame sort of literature on that talks about how how it's focused on dissolving all cause effect record and memory of a situation or a experience. So I'm guessing it sort of relates to that.
Well, back to the inner essence and the outer manifestation. So if we dissolve within the inner essence, if we're dissolving what is keeping the outer manifestation in place, then so that it does dissolve. And again, so sometimes quickly, sometimes gradually.
So the outer manifestation can sort of revert back to its original perfection, as our minds do.
Right.
Okay. I don't know about the Akashic records. I've heard of it. But
it's just that's just an idea that is just a construct where anything that has ever existed, ever, past, present, future, outside of time and space, is recorded energetically. So that's the way that we can look forward in time. If we have access to Akashic records, we can look forward, because we're in a time thing here. We're in a past, present, and future timeline. But that's just this timeline. So it's just a way to describe that all that is and all that ever will be is energetically recorded somehow. It's like that energy, even though we're not perpetuating the energy in with our resistance, or with our with our resistance, we're not perpetuating it. We've removed it, but that doesn't mean that, even though we're not continuing to perpetuate it, we had put into the Akashic records that energy at one point. Does that make it more confusing or less? Do you see what I'm saying? That it is there because it was.
Okay.
Yeah. If we can look past that time program to see everything sort of in the ever present now.
Okay.
Last one, number 12. The vibrational force or current enters the body to the renewing of the flesh. Have you had experience of that, Guy, can you remember a time when?
I remember one of my early point holdings, and we had a big point holding with a couple of people that went to the instructor seminar in Genazzano, the 1996 one. That's, I think it was the same one that's, you know, on the videos there. And we had a couple of people that went to that come over and help us out for a whole sort of 4-day period. And I think, yeah, during that time, I had a point holding where I had this wonderful buzzing feeling. I said this to the lady there, and she said, yeah, that's the vibration of regeneration. So that was kind of cool. And I've had other regenerations in my body and healing in my body. Sometimes it appears, sometimes I've been deceived a few times where I've sort of hoped for a healing and then I thought that I've had it and I didn't. But there was a really amazing time 5 or 6 years ago, and I had cranial electronics, which is point holding on your head, and I used to eat 6 eggs a day. Always eat 6 eggs a day. I was working in McDonald's as a maintenance man, so I'd have to clean up the grease fryers, and it was a
Oh, we lost you. Okay, you just went. Okay, I don't know if we've lost him. His internet has been kind of jumpy today, so yeah, so that, well, I'll just finish off on that. So that vibrational force of that creates the regeneration, that is in body electronics, we call it the burning fire of the Kundalini. And when we are accessing and transmuting that burning fire of the Kundalini, truly, oh, I think he's going to come back. Great, if you got back.
Hi. Sorry, lost you there. But
so I was saying that the in body electronics, we call the vibrational force, we call it the burning fire of the Kundalini. And anytime we get any fire in the body at all, we really enjoy that. It can be, it can be a little disconcerting and uncomfortable the first few times it happens, but yet that is the fire, the electrical fire within that's moving through our physicality in order to burn away anything that shouldn't be there. So whenever we get any kind of fire whatsoever, even warmth, if we get some warmth, we really want to encourage that, and we really want to intensify it from within and just let that fire move through our bodies. It's actually a great exercise to do if we don't have access to point holders. If we can if we can get nutriently saturated and lie perfectly still, and I mean, like, no pillows, no, just lie perfectly still, breathe deep and regular without ceasing, and allow ourselves to really feel that burning fire of the Kundalini. It can be quite a meditative experience, and to really allow it and let it move. And the stillness itself will encourage the fire of the Kundalini. So I recommend that highly.
It's always really sort of amazing to see the link between the mind and the body when you're holding points, and then a person starts really getting into their trauma, and it just burns more and more without changing the pressure, and they haven't had more minerals or anything like that.
Right.
But the burning will just amp up just with the person finding a particular memory or getting deeper into memory.
It's when the physical principles leave, where the physical principles leave off, then the burning fire of the Kundalini takes over. It really doesn't have anything to do with physical principles. Physical principles just allows it to move, and that it can go anywhere in the body. Like I've had full body Kundalini burns, where I remember one of John's stories that he had a Kundalini, full body Kundalini burn, and it went through the mattress and burned onto whatever he was sleeping on, whether it was wood or I can't remember the exact story. Do you remember that story?
Yeah, was that the giving up coffee story? Gave up coffee. He was having, 15 coffees a day for how many years, and then he gave up.
Yeah, it could be, but I'm thinking maybe it was something, it had something also to do with, he had been in India. It had something to do with India. I think he'd been in India, and I don't know, I'll have to go back and see if I can find that video. But anyway, he had this intense healing crisis where he was in a full body burn. And then he came out of whatever it was. Not sure if it was malaria, or I'm not sure what he was.
It sounded like it was pretty horrible. Yeah.
Yeah, there was something that he was going through, and then he just went into the burning fire of the Kundalini, and it burned it. It really burned it out. And that's, yeah, like I said, it can be a little bit perhaps uncomfortable the first few times it happens. The same with when you're holding points and you get an electrical charge coming from the point that, sometimes goes, right up your body. I remember holding points on a man who had been electrocuted, and due to his electrocution had become clinically blind. And it was in my early years of BE in Pennsylvania, and I was extremely zealous. And so I felt I could hold 2 heart points at the same time on this man. I thought that would be like really advantageous for him. So I did. So I put my thumbs I think there was a heart firing point up higher, more
Right in the armpit.
armpit, and then a regular heart point, on the side. And so what happened, we weren't long into that. It was a really long session. It was well over 3 hours. And not long into that session, I started to get an electrical charge coming out of his body, and it was coming in my right thumb, and it was going right across my heart and out my left thumb back into his body. And there was this circular the entire time. And it was like sticking my thumb into a 220 plug and having it continuously run through me. I mean, I was going through waves of nauseousness and sweat, and it was quite intense. And it was an excellent session for him. He worked really, really, really hard. But I learned my lesson on that. That wasn't the best way to do it for as far as grounding. It's part of what we're doing electrically is when we're point holding, we're the ground. So we're releasing sort of a lot of that built up electrical energy, and we become the ground to a certain degree. And but that electricity that was running through me, I mean, I was, and I was on fire too. Like he was on fire and I was on fire. So I'm sure there was some regeneration for both of us. And, when things like that occur, it's really about the willingness to keep going and the willingness to be present with it and love it, really, really love how that feels, really love how being electrocuted for over 3 hours feels. Right. Or, I can, there's thousands of examples, but that just gives people an understanding, an idea of what we're doing. It's powerful, very powerful transmutational work. And I wanted to go back to the one where John said, number 4, the crystals dissolve with the help of ancient techniques, such as body electronics, which are rediscovered in our day. And that's really important to note, even though body electronics is maybe what, 60 or so years of age, maybe a little bit more than that. And when I first entered body electronics, which was somewhere in the late 90s, I had been doing body electronics for years. And I remember working on people after that, and that I knew and that I had worked on before, and they would say, well, that's what that's what you've done before. I mean, I was holding points long before I knew anything about body electronics. And it was like an ancient memory within me. It wasn't something I had been taught. It wasn't something I had, I did have, I had a degree in Ayurveda, and I had a lot of other education and experience under my belt. Yet this knowledge of principles that are found within body electronics is ancient. And by that, I mean, it is ever present. It's just re-experienced in this time. And it's a really, I just feel it's the, what better ways can we spend our time?
Yeah. I sometimes wonder, has it sort of popped its head up throughout the eons, 1,000 years ago, 2,000, 5,000,
Sure. Yeah, for sure. I think there's always been pockets of it, but there probably was certain times that it surfaced on Earth more than others, probably due to its necessity to bring people's awareness, bring their consciousness up to a greater awareness, to be able to access those levels of love that exceed the physics. I listened to one of Dan Winter's, he's in France now, but he posted something the other day that I reposted on, I think he called it something like the electricity of love or something like that. And I thought it was kind of it was a little bit hard to get through as far as wording. And I mean, it was very complex, as Dan is in his, he understands things in a very complex way. And so I had to sort of sift through that and bring it into some simplicity for myself. But I thought it was an excellent, when you bring it into that simplicity, I think it's an excellent way to see how accessing what we call love, or infinite love, or unconditional love, and being able to release resistance in order to access that actually expands our awareness to the point of expanding the light quotient, which then expands into and beyond our current level of what we call physics, which means the matrix is being shifted into something more, something else. That's how I see it. When I have a very powerful point holding, and I come out of it with greater awareness and greater access to love, or call it whatever you want, but we know that access has been made. in Drunvalo's work, many people know I spent 10 years studying and traveling with Drunvalo, and he taught the language that he used was living in the heart. So he taught methodology around accessing what he called the heart. And but basically, it doesn't really matter what we call it as long as we're actually doing it, and we are holding it after we access it. So we're actually holding it in our reality, in our daily life. That's really important. So often people will come to an intensive and they'll have healings, and I've seen sight improved and returned. I've seen so many physical things change with people, and emotional things as well. And when they leave, it's really about holding that level of light that they have then brought themselves into, and then going from there, expanding more by releasing more and more and more resistance. It's the only way that I know that we can expand our awareness of pure consciousness, which is love. And that is to release resistance, change our consciousness through transmutation, and be ever more loving. Of course, we have all of these ideas and intellectual ideas around what that looks like here on earth. True love can be very different than what we may think it looks like or feels like. True love has so many qualities, and those qualities are within us. Every being has those qualities already. They're already innate within us. It's just a matter of releasing resistance to keep us from that.
Yeah, I can remember a few years back thinking that after I'd had a big healing crisis, I sort of realized at one point that I often, through the previous 20 years or whatever, I'd mistaken, or I'd sort of superimposed all these other things onto love. So I sort of duped myself into thinking that love was control, or love was physical closeness, intimacy, or love was being controlled. Love was something else. Love was comfort, and I just saw it was like like stained glass suddenly went clear, and I just saw, wow, I've just believed like love is all these different like emotional tugs and sort of resistances, and it's absolutely not that. And I sort of wondered, like, hang on, what is love if it's not control, or it's not being controlled, or it's not out of control sex, or it's not just getting drunk and yahooing with the boys, and what is it? And the sort of feeling that came to me was a relationship between a parent and a child, newborn.
That unconditional love.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
But most parents, like in human terms, I've yet to see a parent or a child that had unconditional love.
Yeah.
We do love, and it's this interesting thing that happens with parenthood. When we first see the child after birth, and I remember for my first son, it went on and on and on and on. Like for months, I was in a bliss state. And I was in this state of observation where I was just in a total bliss state to observe perfection. And I had that with my other children too, where there was this time, it was like a time period. And many people say, I've heard many people say that that happens, and sometimes it's only for a moment or a few moments. And I'm not talking about the love that you feel for your child. Of course, that love continues. I'm talking about this other worldly, transcendental state of consciousness that where resistance is not present. But you know, as you have experiences in life, in this earthly plane, which is based in duality and mostly in resistance, as we said in the beginning of this talk, 99%. That might be a little high now. We might be down to maybe 95, let's say. Will give us the benefit of the doubt. Humanity, that is. Yet we're in a very intense level, very high level of resistance. And we think it's normal here on Earth. We believe that what happens here on Earth is normal. We've normalized resistance. We've normalized anti-life. We've normalized so many things that we can't see that it's based in resistance. So it's just removing, having that willingness to see, observe, and participate appropriately. That came to me today as I was sitting out in the beautiful sunshine. That's one of it's a statement that John, he wrote and said around his Kahuna teacher. That was a quote that he made of his Kahuna teacher in Maui. Observe and participate appropriately. There's a lot around that. I mean, that's something that you can contemplate for a month, but you know, it's really about participating appropriately would require non-resistance. So we would have to remove the levels of resistance within to participate appropriately without. So how do you feel? Is that a good place to, do you want to add something to that?
I think is that statement's made in regard to responsibility. Is that correct?
Right.
There is a chapter in book 1 of the Logic and Sequence series, Responsibility and the 10 Steps to Perfection, which is a goodie. So it goes over the myriad aspects of responsibility, which is, I guess it's that statement, I observe, I participate appropriately, expanded upon. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the 10 steps to perfection. That's also in, I think I took it out of my, I'm not sure if it's still in my current publication of the Body Electronics Experience. That can be found on Amazon, like I said. Holistic Health Made Easy can also be found there. And but there's also on my site, if you search for the 10 steps to perfection, you'll probably find somewhere that you can download it free of charge. Yeah, just use that search bar. It's not the greatest website. There's probably some close to 500 posts. I've been working on it for about 10 years, and yeah, just even if you put something in the search bar, sometimes you still have to scroll for what comes up to find what you're looking for. So it can be a little bit tricky, but maybe you'll find some other things along the way when you're when you're searching for something. I remember it about 20 years ago. There was a website that I came across. The man's name was, his last name was Sewell, Sewell, and he had a site which is still up. He's deceased now, but somebody's keeping his website up. It's called halexandria.org. And when I discovered that site at least 20 years ago, I would just, like, days I would get lost in that site with links. Like, the amount of effort that he put into writing that site is tremendous. And it's just such a beautiful, and it just takes you from one topic to the next, to the next, to the next. And it was just such a, going through a maze. It was really, really beautiful. Occasionally I'll go back and have a look at it. He interviewed me. He was a physicist, and he interviewed me after I went to Zero Ohms Resistance in the time-space continuum warp in 2005. And yeah, I should have taped that interview, but anyway, he was he was really, really beautiful human being. Okay, I think that's a great place to end. There's lots of good stuff in today. Thank you very much, Guy. Thanks for doing this.
Thank you, Illia.
We spread it out, and we share it with far and wide, and the people that feel it to do this work will come. Like I said earlier, I feel like my full-time job is giving consultation online. That's what I do most of the time. And the second part, of course, my part-time job is holding intensives, body electronics, point holding intensives. And I really look forward to doing that again sometime in the near future. We have had our, within the country of Canada, we've had our mandates lifted for now. I think the government of Canada is saying it's paused. So that means that we can now fly within our own country, but there are still obstacles in place for people coming into Canada who have not succumbed to the injections that are being, I don't even know what the word is, that are being perpetrated. I think that's the best word, perpetrated on humanity. So, so that still, keeps the international community from coming into Canada. I will look at maybe going to the US in the fall, in September. I'll look at that. I think that would be a really excellent, because I can leave the country now and I can come back. I just have to, at the current status, I have to quarantine for 14 days after I return. But I can at least get out of the country and come back in the country without injections. So that's a step in the right direction. We want to see all of these mandates and restrictions lifted now. We want that, and that's worldwide, not just in Canada. So let's, yeah, we need to be free to move and travel as we choose. So yeah, I'll look at that for the fall. I will make this, I know I've done it on another video, but I'll make this announcement here too. I know in the beginning of the year, I had said that I would come to Ontario late summer and into the fall to do some body electronics work there. I'm not going to be doing that this year. I am going to stay in British Columbia for the summer. All of my children now can, in Canada, can fly in. I'm so happy about that. So they're going to be flying in this summer, and we're going to have a beautiful time together. And I'm really looking forward to that. And then we'll go from there. But for now, I won't be returning to Ontario, to the best of my knowledge at this moment, this year, unless it's very late in the year. So anyway, that's just something I wanted to make clear, and we'll go from there.
Right. Hopefully I can join you in one of your intensives again.
Yes, yeah. And you know, there's a possibility. That's why I mentioned the U.S., because the U.S. doesn't have the restrictions like Canada has. So there is a possibility that I could have an intensive in the U.S. and people could fly from anywhere in the world into the U.S. and we could do it there. So that's a possibility. If not this year, then sometime in the very near future. Yeah. But anywhere, anybody within driving distance, the coast, Vancouver, Calgary, you know, within, you know, that's well within driving distance. I'm happy to do a point holding intensive here in the Nelson area as well. So contact me if anybody's interested in preparations, and join the Body Electronics point holding group. It's called Body Electronics, the Evolution of Consciousness on Facebook. And I'm also on Telegram under Illia Hart, ILLIA. So yeah, let's leave it at that. Okay, thanks again.
All right.
Be in touch.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay, bye.